Welcome back to the Boozers Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Amir Motameni. I'm joined here today by my two co-hosts, Panos George and Neil Joshi. And today we have a special guest and hopefully a reoccurring guest, Vanik Panosian. How are you guys doing today?
Good.
Great.
Awesome.
What's good?
Not much, man. Excited. We got a big game today. So this again is the Boozers Basketball Podcast, where we like to sometimes drink beers and talk about basketball. And so before we get started, I want to just go around and see what everybody's drinking today. So let's start off with Neil.
I am drinking a Mass Acceleration Double IPA from New York.
Nice. Is that the name of the beer, or what's the brewery's name?
The brewery is Equilibrium, upstate New York.
Nice. Never heard of it.
Neither have I.
Never even when you were in Q's?
Nope.
Okay.
Trying something new for size for this podcast.
Is it good?
Yeah, it is
All right.
good.
I bet you Neil would say anything's good. I'm sure. Neil's not picky. Well, that's a good quality about Neil. So, all right, Bonnie, what do you got today?
I got a Union Jack IPA from Firestone here, California, local.
805, right?
Yes, sir.
Nice. Awesome. All right, Panos, what do you got today?
Oh, Gatorade Zero. I don't know if you can see that. There it is. Perfect.
All right, I see a theme. I think you had Coke Zero in the first
yeah.
the first episode. Yeah,
Delicious.
we don't. Yeah, we're getting a little bit older, so we don't really drink on school nights. So we've had a few podcasts on weekdays. So if you see us drinking, it's going to be recorded on a weekend. So except for Panos, obviously. For me, I got Laughing Monk IPA. It's a Sister Cat IPA, a West Coast IPA, and it's a local brewery here in San Francisco.
Eat fish on the side of your can.
Yeah, it does. It says eat fish, drink beer, be excellent to each other, which is, I'm assuming, a reference to Bill and Ted.
Yeah, yes.
Keanu Reeves, baby. And I actually tried to watch the newest Matrix yesterday on HBO Max. I got halfway through and was disappointed. I'll watch it again, probably, and try to finish it. But anyway, so yeah, for today's podcast, just want to go over a couple things. One, we want to do a quick recap on the Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals between the Golden State Warriors and the Luka Mavericks, as we like to call them. And then after that, we want to do a quick preview of the Miami Heat versus Boston Celtics Game 3, which is going to be tonight at 5:30 Eastern. So let's jump right in. That last game was pretty crazy. So my question to the panel: so was that a epic meltdown by the Mavericks, or do you consider that an epic comeback by the Warriors? Neil, let's start with you.
Well, Dallas scored 13 points in the third quarter. So under any definition, that would qualify as a meltdown. The thing about this series is Dallas is just going to be shooting threes. And when the shooting variance turns around and bites you, it bites you pretty hard. And that's exactly what happened to Dallas. It's a major missed opportunity for them. But if you got Luka running the offense, scoring 13 points in a quarter is not acceptable. So I would lean towards more of it being a choke. But when you're dealing with a championship team on their home floor, you can never count them out. I believe the league got to 19 at one point in the first half. Yep. And Golden State, they just methodically chipped away. They got a huge game from Looney. I think he set a career high in points. But at the end of the day, 13 points in any quarter is just not going to get it done against a championship level team.
Yeah, you want to hear a funny side note to that? Guess when the last time Kevin Looney scored 20 points in a basketball game?
In college at UCLA?
Whatever year he graduated, like his junior year or sophomore year was the last time he got 20 points. So he's never had a 20-point game in the NBA in regular season.
Yeah, I mean,
let alone the playoffs.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that is Dallas played Gobert off the floor with their strategy. DeAndre Ayton was just not in it mentally. But if Looney is going to be able to produce at that kind of level and stay in the game, that is a huge counter that Dallas is going to have to come up with some sort of solution for, because that's not something they've really seen, someone actually being aggressive, taking advantage of scoring opportunities in the post.
Yep, makes sense. Vadik, what was your perspective on that game last night?
Epic meltdown. I honestly didn't think the Mavs ever stood a chance in the series. if there was going to be a game that the Mavs were going to convince me, it was yesterday. You make 21 3-pointers, you build a 19-point lead, you're shooting lights out, you get 30 plus from Brunson, you get Bullock and Finney dropping threes. I mean, every single circumstance, including Draymond picks up his 5th foul like in the middle of the 3rd quarter. I mean, you can't have any more ideal circumstance to win a game. And I honestly think like this is going to be done in 4 or 5 games. The Mavs, this is part of the reason why I also wanted to see the Suns advance. I thought that they'd put up a better fight against the Warriors, but
100% agree.
The Mavs just, man, they live by the 3, die by the 3. And then on top of it, you have Maxi Kleber, who was atrocious yesterday. Awful. Like literally led the team in plus minus with a negative. I think he was like negative 20 on the floor. Looney, part of why Looney went off is because Kleber did nothing. I think he had 1 field goal made. He's your big man. If he's going to clog the paint or help on switches and stuff like that, you're at least going to say like, oh, at least he's going to get me boards. The guy had 1 rebound.
Yeah.
He's the center and he had 1 rebound. I mean, it's insane. They should have just gone small and gone away from it anyway and just switch everything. But Looney absolutely destroyed Kleber. And so, like, I'm worried about the Mavs big time. I was worried before, and like I said, yesterday losing that game, I don't know if you bounce back from that.
What I know you say they should have went small, but like, who off the bench would you put in? Like, maybe kept Finney Smith on there, right? He's a better defender.
Dude, honestly, if you're going to commit to that small ball style, like, remember the Pocket Rockets with PJ Tucker playing the 5 and Covington? Just commit to it because that's all you're doing anyway. You're jacking up threes and trying to outbeat him, and it was working in the first half. So, like I said, if Kleber's going to be out there and he's going to be a negative for you, might as well stay committed with what your game plan is. I was just surprised they didn't pull him.
Yeah, no, I agree. He had like 1 good like highlight block, and they were talking about how he's like a great rim defender, pretty much the only rim defender. So yeah, that's a really good point. Panos, what do you think? Meltdown or epic comeback?
I think it's a combination of both. Yes, there was a meltdown 3rd quarter. They had 13 points, but like the Warriors are known for a second half, game. So it's like they scored 25, and then they're leading the league in points per game in the 4th quarter. They usually average 30. They made 43 in the 4th quarter last night. Pretty crazy. And then, like Vonnie said about Kevin Looney, dude, they outscored him in the paint by double. I think it was 30 to like 62 or something like that. And they got out rebounded by like 13 rebounds. It was insane. Like there's no defensive presence in the key. What happened to Powell? I saw he only played 8 minutes. Did he get hurt?
I'm not sure.
He only, maybe he did because he only had 2 boards. And then, like you said, Maxey had 1 board. Like Vonnie's right. You have to go with the small ball. I mean, they were knocking down threes left and right in the first half. Then they built a lead up by 19, and then it kind of cut down a bit too. But it's a combination.
With the Warriors, like even in the first half, I think we've all seen enough Warriors to know that this is a team that no lead is safe. And so you don't want to be up 19 points in the 2nd quarter. You want to be up like 19 points early in the 4th. And even then, I don't know how comfortable I am because you're going to get into a 3-point shooting contest with Curry is absolutely the best 3-point shooter in NBA history.
Yeah.
And then Klay Thompson is in that conversation just right behind him. So a team that can shoot as many threes as they want because those guys can actually knock them down. They're just taking the right shots. They made the threes that they needed to. And on top of it, they destroyed them in the paint. I mean, in the 4th quarter, I mean, it was comical, dude. It was layup. I mean, they couldn't stop anything, which this is also, we talk about a knock on Luka, right? We know how offensively gifted he is. He still has a lot of room to grow defensively. So the Kleber defensively, I mean, they were lost and Warriors were getting everything they wanted. Yeah. So 19-point lead. If it was a 30-point lead, I wouldn't have cared because there's too much time on the clock. And the Warriors are they're always going to come back. We've seen that last 6-7 years.
I mean, you saw it, dude. The Mavs shot almost 47% from 3 and still ended up losing that game. That's 47 is really good. I mean,
and how many did they make overall? 21?
21 out of 45. And then the Warriors had 14 out of 28. They shot 50%. They only made 14 threes.
And you got Draymond out of the game with foul trouble.
Yeah.
The heart of the team, the architect of the defense, all of the factors that you need to steal a game on Golden State's home floor were right there for you, and you still can't come up with a win.
That's making it sound like more of an epic meltdown. I still agree with Panos that I think it's a combination of the two.
We know the Warriors are a second half team, you know that, but like,
yeah, and their D is amazing, but
there's no excuse for 13 points. Like, you got to show up. You know how the Warriors are.
And also, they were playing a little bit of drop, the Bucks and 1, right? So it's like the corners were wide open for Sandra Bullock's son. Reggie was just wide open all day. He made like 6 out of 10, but like he had 4 wide open missed threes, right? Like every single shot. He was like in like practice. And they started missing those shots in the third quarter, and they were all pretty much wide open. And then when Luka was forced, when he noticed that his teammates weren't hitting those shots, right? Brunson wasn't hitting as many in the second half as he was in the first. Then he started taking those like post up fadeaway kind of shots on Looney, right? And like Looney was just impenetrable for like, he just couldn't really do much. And like he was having less success in game 1 trying to beat Looney as well, one-on-one with support. So yeah, just kudos for the Warriors defense too, right? Like, so I mean, they not only did they miss shots, but they still made it hard on Luka. Like Luka had to pull some incredible passes in order to get to those spots, right? To get those guys those wide open threes. He was like throwing some crazy wild like Jokic-esque passes. So I think it was definitely a combination, and of course epic comeback in the sense that the Warriors, you know, dominated in that fourth quarter, started hitting big shots. Otto Porter off the bench started off by hitting like a big corner 3, which gave them the first lead of the game. Up 1, and then he comes back and gets like a little turnaround jumper and some free throws and gets like 11 points. You know, they have, not only do they have the sharp shooting, you know, superstars of Splash Bros, but then guys like Porter, like Wiggins, Looney, like their other guys are stepping up, and that's how you win a game when you didn't make 21 threes shooting at an insanely high clip. And it sounds like an epic meltdown now that I think of it, but for sure combo.
Otto Porter had a really, really solid game. Like you said, I mean, those other guys stepped up. Draymond's out, Looney, Otto Porter, and then obviously Poole, man. He probably should have been your 6th man of the year. The guy, like those 3 guys, like I said, the Warriors are already so talented with their, you know, their top tier players with Curry and Clay and Draymond, and to get that type of support from the others, I mean, they're going to be big. I mean, I would bet on them winning the championship at this point. So I don't think that's that crazy to say.
Yeah, I think they are the favorites to take it down right now.
And I think,
I'm not surprised.
I think the Suns getting knocked out, the Warriors get home court advantage in the finals.
Yeah, they do.
They 100% do. And I know why they do, in case my team somehow makes it, which pisses me off big time.
Something, or was it conference record?
What was it? No, I mean, I feel like it's head to head, you know, generally with, it's head to head. The first one's head to head.
Yeah.
Naturally. And the reason why they didn't get it was the Jimmy yelling at Spo game was there was like 10 games left in the season. We're fighting for, we're not trying to dodge the Nets, because we're not the Bucks, right? And a few other teams. So we played really good down the stretch. I think the Heat went like 8-2 in that stretch after Jimmy and Spo had their trouble, and the media only talked about that and never talked about, oh, hey, what? They just won like 8 in a row in Boston, in Toronto, while we're all playing for the top 2 seeds. But anyway, no Splash Bros, no Wiggins. I forgot who else was out. I think no Porter. So it was Kuminga and Poole, and they beat the shit out of us. And we had every starter playing that game. Maybe not Kyle Lowry, but we had Bam, we had Hero, we had Jimmy. We're trying for it. And if we do make it to the finals, we don't get it because of that. Because if we won that game, we would have had the better record overall. So anyway, next question I have for the group. So I think this series is over. I said Warriors in 7, and it was just because Luka was playing like Jordan in that last series. I thought the Suns would be way more competitive generally, but I thought if Luka can play it and continue to play like this, and he gets some help from Brunson, who's becoming a little stud, right? He's looking like an Isaiah Thomas Jr. like at the Celtics for those few years, right? That little pitbull type of guy who could get to the hoop and score. But I lost my train of thought. God damn it.
How long the series is going to go? Is that your question?
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Thank you. So anyway, I initially thought it would be 7. I also think it's going to be 5 or 6. Now at this point, do you think it's 5, Panos?
Lucky. They'll be lucky to get 1 game.
So Warriors get a split and close it out in 5.
Dude, it's so hard to sweep in the NBA. It's so hard. So I mean, the Mavs they're going to get at least one. So I'm with Panos. I mean, it's probably going to go 5, but like I said, it's so hard to sweep.
The Warriors have too much firepower, man.
Yeah.
So okay, my question though is this. So I think the Warriors defense, I think, played a big part in why they were able to get past the Grizzlies, even though they didn't have Morant. And their D has obviously been tremendous these first 2 games. So do you think that the Warriors D is underappreciated? I don't hear people talking much about it. It's always about the Splash Bros and their 3-point shooting and all that.
I think Dallas was getting the looks they wanted. I mean, their strategy is to drive and kick, find open shooters. First half, they're making them. So it's hard to say that Golden State's defense is thriving in that situation. Second half, the shots start to miss and it catalyzes the comeback. So, I mean, Golden State was a great defensive team during the regular season. I think they were in the top 5. So they do have a great defense. And when Draymond Green is in there playing free safety, they have a bunch of wing players that they can throw at Luka, and it is working to an extent. I mean, Luka's going to get his, we all know that, but just giving him different looks has an impact. But I don't know if they've really demonstrated that they're an elite unit where they're just like shutting you down. And if they were to face, I mean, it doesn't matter who they'd face, either Boston or Miami, I think you'd probably get more of an understanding of how elite this defense is, because especially with Boston, because I think they have more options. But with Dallas, you're just relying on a bunch of role players hitting open shots. And if it goes in, then the narrative is that their defense isn't doing a good job. But as soon as they start going out and missing, then it leads to 19-point comebacks in the second half.
I don't think that's the narrative at all.
What is the narrative?
No, because it's not that their defense is not good because Dallas is hitting shots. That's what they're giving them on purpose. They're doing the box and one. They're letting them shoot. They know Reggie Bullock cannot put the ball on the floor.
That's what Milwaukee did in Game 7 with Boston, and then Grant Williams torched him. I mean, this is a strategy where it's just like, okay, leave the guy open in the corner, and he can't consistently demonstrate that he's going to hit that shot.
You know, I agree with you, like with what's happening. I just don't think that should be the narrative. Like the defense is bad. It's like they are pushing you towards shooting these shots with these role players, and like
the less optimal option.
If Grant Williams is going to hit 7 out of 18, okay, we're going to lose. If Bullock is going to hit, in theory, 6 out of 10, and Brunson's going to hit 4 out of 6, and Finney Smith's going to go 3 out of 7 or whatever, like you should lose, right? Like, so I still think that's the Warriors' strategy is to give that to them. But I think overall, I'm asking, do you think it's underrated? Their defense is underrated or not talked about enough throughout the playoffs or just in general?
I think Warriors defense is decent. I think the Mavs defense was so atrocious that it like overlaps anything the Warriors doing. The reason they lost that game is because they couldn't stop the Warriors. It was like their offense, what you just said, there's statistically, you look at every column and you look at that box score and you're like, oh, dude, the Mavs should have won this game. But their defense was so disastrous. I mean, like Panos was saying earlier, dude, points in the paint was like more than double. It was like 62-30. 62-30. So law of averages, man. The first half, the Mavericks are on fire. They're hitting threes lights out, but they're not going to shoot at 60-70% the whole game.
Right.
Good role players, but that's not going to stay. And then on top of it, the Warriors are not going to shoot 20-25%. So that goes up in the second half. Curry, even Wiggins is hitting threes. They start hitting those shots. The others on the Mavericks cool off, and then that's the turnaround. And like I said, at the end of the day, the easy shots, dude, you want the layup. Yeah. You don't want to take a 3 from 3 feet beyond the arc with Bullock.
They were shooting 50.
Turns into a star. He's just finishing layups, shooting 10 for 15, whatever it is, putting up a career high in points because he's just cleaning up the mess
57
and
from the field.
Yeah.
What'd you say, Panos?
I said they shot 57% from the field. Like
who?
The Warriors in that game overall.
Yeah, we're not. Well, that's now you're switching it to Dallas's defense because Vonnie made a point.
They have no.
We're not referring to that. We're referring to just the Warriors being. I'm asking this question because I just found out a stat that I didn't know. So they were 3rd ranked in the regular season. Neil, they're number 1 defensive rated at 109.6 in the playoffs. That's why I'm asking. Like, and I didn't know that because they don't talk about it a lot, and it doesn't seem like that the whole team is playing that well defensively. We know them generally as a top 3 team. We don't see them as an elite individual defending team. Like we have obviously Draymond and Gary Payton Jr. who's been hurt.
Yeah, Draymond gets his due. He's always in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. Clay was a great defender pre-injury. I think he's still trying to get the kinks back. He still looks like a limited version of himself. He's not all the way back yet. But as Vonnegut alluded to, they just got a bunch of wings now. They got Otto Porter. They got Andrew Wiggins. They just have a bunch of people that can guard the perimeter at a high level, and that's contributing to these numbers that you're talking about.
Yeah, no, totally agree. So yeah, side note before we get into the next segment, I know we've all been paying attention to Pat Beverly. Has he done anything new lately? I keep seeing him pop up. We haven't talked about this on the pod yet, like all the ridiculous stuff he's been saying on First Take and whatever the Stephen A show is. That might be First Take. I don't know the names. Don't really watch cable anymore. But I think I saw him pop up like yesterday. I know this has been happening for a week, but like, what's your general take? Like Vonnegut, let's ask Vonnegut first, because Vonnegut is the resident Houston Rockets lifer over here. What was your take? I guess when the question was brought up that like, does James Harden deserve a supermax? Morey has history with him. Is he going to actually pay him off? What are your thoughts? And you can even ask about like, what are your thoughts on Harden getting a max anyway? But like, what are your thoughts on freaking Pat Bev?
This is heavy right here. I'll try not to let my bias show. Hence the Rocket Red right here too.
Let it show a little bit, right? Because I try to do. I preface everything. I'm a Heat fan. I'm biased, but I still try to be objective and non-delusional, which I know you're not. So
all right. So you just threw a lot at me. So let me just cover a couple of things. Let me make sure I don't miss anything. As far as Pat Beverly goes, I love the dude. He's a pest, but having been a Rocket, I know what he brings to the table, and he's the guy's the hard-nosed pit bull that you want on your team. He's the guy that you hate if he's on your on the opposing team, but he's the guy that you want on your side. He's a mini version of PJ Tucker and probably a lot louder. And I think the thing right now with him, I don't agree with all the stuff that he's saying in the media. Absolutely not. I think he's throwing Chris Paul under the bus with a bunch of different stuff. That's obviously there's some history there. I know, they were traded for each other with the Clippers trade, but uncalled for too, especially that he's still playing in the league. I mean, Chris Paul, it's easy to criticize a player right now that's 37 years old, but he still is the point guard. Even without a championship title, I'm not worried about Chris Paul's credentials. So Beverly's kind of coming out with nonsense when he's doing all this stuff. He kind of sounds like LeVar, what's his name? The ball. Yeah.
Panos' favorite.
My favorite.
Favorite man, I guess, in basketball.
But for ESPN and all the hot take stuff, obviously, I mean, we're talking about it too. It's an easy click because it's fun, it's funny, and it causes drama. So, like I said, it's probably good for TV, but I don't take it that far. As far as the stuff that he's saying about Harden, I do have an opinion about that. The Harden thing. If I'm a general manager, am I giving him a max? No. But could I see a team giving him a max? And are the Sixers basically strong-armed into giving him whatever he wants? Yes, because they traded for him, and he's either going to opt in or you're going to end up eventually losing him for nothing. So, I mean, I would hope that this point in his career that Harden, he takes something that's fair for both sides, right? So that way the Sixers have a better opportunity to kind of round out their roster, because you could see, dude, they have so many holes, right? They've got Maxey, he's gonna be pretty close to getting his coming off his rookie deal and needing to get paid. Embiid's on a max, which he deserves. He's in his prime. So, and then you still got to figure out the Tobias Harris. He's on a max deal himself. And I mean, again, another player that he's super talented, but is he justified a max deal compared to his production? No. The thing that I'll say is Harden gets a lot of knock because I think everybody's just always comparing to the Houston Harden. He's not that player anymore, man. The guy's 32 going on 33. He's coming off a significant hamstring injury. So between aging and on top of it, you've got, everybody always questions it. I still don't think, like, conditioning wise, he's where he needs to be at. He doesn't look like he put in the work during the offseason to get himself the fit, slim Harden that we're kind of used to seeing. So he's got to do that conditioning and all that kind of stuff to get his body right. But the max deal is the statistical part, see, because the media narrative on him is super heavy, right? They want to crush Harden because, oh, like even in the Raptors series, and then with the Heat, he's not shooting enough and he disappeared. All valid criticism, absolutely. But he's changed his game a little bit. He knows that Embiid's the number one. He's dumping the ball to Embiid in the paint. Can he be aggressive? Yes, but that hamstring injury's got him limited, man. The guy is he was successful in Houston because his first step was so disgusting, dude. He would get around you and you send a double, he's throwing the lob to Capella or whoever the big man is. And if you don't, he's getting to he's drawing contact, he's getting to the to the hoop and getting the end one or the layup or hitting you with the floater. Right now with that hamstring, dude, speed is not his asset. He tries to make the move and he's got the defender right on his hip, and that's why he doesn't have the fouls, and that's why he's not getting the finishing touches at the rim. So he's slowed down, whether it's hamstring, aging, conditioning, whatever you want to attribute that to. Harden is not the same Harden. But as one more pro, everybody's knocking the dude about his stats, and he's not putting up 60, 15, and 10, whatever those crazy, NBA 2K numbers were. But Harden's points per field goal are still comparable to what he was doing in his MVP seasons. If you look at that stat, he's putting up like 1.5 points per field goal attempt. So if he's shooting and he still has an ability to get to the free throw, and you're looking at, like, I think he put up 22, his averages were like 22, 10, and 8 this season. Like, dude, those are all-star numbers. But we're just like, oh, he's not a max. Like, if you're just looking at his raw stats, you're like, dude, I would pay for that. I'd take that. But because you're comparing it to like, oh yeah, he's dropping 40 and 20 and 10 or whatever it was, it's like, oh, this guy's washed. He's not washed, dude. He can still get better, but he's not washed. So
let me stop you there real quick.
I think Philly needs for Harden to opt in. You run it back for a year and you see Harden put in the work in the offseason. He starts to rehab his hamstring injury. His hamstring injury is pretty significant. It has hampered him. But you want to see an indication that he's putting in the work in the offseason before you invest further in him. Because when he was on Brooklyn, he checked out. Once he knew that Kyrie drama situation happened, he's like, I need to get out of here. He stopped caring about his fitness. He's going to strip clubs. He's doing whatever he wants to do. But with Philly, there is a clear understanding that they have really mortgaged significant resources to bring him on board. It came in the middle of the season. All those concerns about, we barely got time to get our team together, figure out how we want to roll, all that stuff, fair and valid. So that's why you bring him back, and then this becomes the judgment year on the opt-in season, and then you can understand where you go in terms of a max. Because 22-10 is great, right? But when you make an investment at the max, you're paying someone into their age 36, 37 seasons, and it's probably very unlikely that he's going to be approaching those kind of numbers, and he's killing your cap. So do something with this judgment year in 2022, 2023, and then we can decide whether or not to move forward with you, because he does have the opt-in ability. And I think that's really the leverage year on both sides to understand what you're getting yourself into in a long-term deal.
Yep. He has one of the best prove it years where it's like, what, $47 million if he opts in?
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Right? So get a full off season. Don't go to the strip club every weekend during this off season, but you get a full off season with the Sixers, right? So you get to learn their playbook, build up more chemistry. I hate this dude, but I'm not crazy. Like I said, like I see that he's still a star, right? He's putting up crazy numbers. He's one of the best, most skilled offensive players in the history of basketball. But where I'm going to knock Vonnig off his soapbox from earlier is he chokes in the playoffs. That's his legacy. Like, he does 60 points, 15 assists, 15 rebound, like triple doubles, and was just becoming way better playmaker, which was another skill set that he developed besides being an amazing slasher, attacking to the rim. Eventually got better at shooting and became a better playmaker. Combined both of those and became one of the most lethal offensive players. But every single postseason he chokes. He shoots 48%, 46%, whatever it is, like a good percentage during the season. Like you said, however many points per field goal attempts he makes, he's still doing that at a high level. But like, that's the regular season. Like, his shooting percentages dip significantly in the playoffs. He doesn't show up. Like, he goes from 48% to like 30%. Like, Like he literally has choked every single series, and that's his legacy to me as a hater. But I mean, I obviously know there's different circumstances, there's injuries he's dealt with Chris Paul, but like he's objectively played worse in the playoffs every single year.
One big bullet point there that I think Harden never or struggles to adjust with: officiating during playoff time changes. Period. And so all those like ticky-tack fouls and end ones that he's always used to getting during the regular season that helps him get to the free throw line. Again, you know, in the past days where he'd go to the free throw line 15 to 20 times, the whistle gets tight. And so when he doesn't have that, his game changes and he gets frustrated. So I think one of the biggest things for him has just been struggling with playoff officiating. But yeah, I mean, he definitely has had games where he didn't show up. The Spurs series was one. But there's games, I don't know, like I'd like to see what his playoff numbers versus regular season stats are. But
we'll do that. Yeah.
We'll bring that up sometime.
We'll take that offline and look up those stats. But also, I mean, he was number 3 in attempts, like regular season, right? Embiid was number 1 with like 11 per game. He was like still number 3. So again, he's getting to the line. I don't know how many free throws he shot in the playoffs in comparison, like in terms of averages, this playoff series versus the regular season. But I feel like the NBA is so soft. I keep saying this. I'll say this every goddamn episode. How soft is the NBA? I feel like Harden was still, and don't quote me, I don't know this. We have to look back into last year and the last few years. Like, I feel like Harden was still getting, like, objectively, like, the most amount of free throws in the playoffs compared to other players because they're calling such soft stuff. And they had to change a rule like this season because of him and Trey and Luka and the type of like activity they were doing, right? So I feel like I'm not sure if that's true in the playoffs necessarily the last few years, but this year, sure, he definitely shot less.
Oh, dude, he took a huge dip, and I think even the officiating since the rule change, like once they changed the rule and they announced it to the league, like the first couple of months, I mean, they were not blowing any whistles, and after a couple months it lightened up,
reverted back to normal.
Yeah, some of those calls came back, not to the old extent, but they definitely came back because I think a lot of players are frustrated, not just from Harden's angle. Harden might be one of the poster boys for
Trae Young is in that mix
of that foul baiting, but there's a whole list of players that are into that game and they understand the advantage and the pros of drawing contact and playing that game and getting to the line and getting your opposing team in foul trouble. You know what I mean? So I think the league as a general was frustrated enough that, hey, the refs started letting their whistles fly a little bit easier.
Yeah. That's everybody, Vonnie.
Just to go back to your guys' Harden averages. He's averaged dropped in both assists, rebounds, and points in the playoffs compared to his regular season, and he's shooting a career low in field goal percentage this year.
What about free throws?
40.
What's his average free throws in the playoffs?
Free throws? Oh, attempts
in the playoff history.
Let's see, 9 in the regular season, and then it dropped to 6 in the playoffs.
This year, or just I'm talking about
this year.
But he's still a shell of himself. So this year doesn't matter.
He's not going to drop 60, 20, and 10s like he's not playing the New York Knicks in the playoffs. You know what I mean? He's going against elite competition, the best of the best on top of it. And then like I said, the officiating changes, the defensive schemes change. So depending on what injury scenarios there are, I mean, you see it hard with the other thing too. Is like they do that now. They just double down. The Mavs are not that different of a team from what the Rockets were. No, I might be blasphemy to some people, but Luka is not that different than what Harden brings to the table. And so when you double up and you can let that guy go off, you got to lose to the others. You know what I mean?
I think in a future iteration of this Sixers team, you might see Harden become the third option. If Tyrese Maxey is really that dude and he starts emerging into the number 2 option, you could just put Harden in a step-up shooting role and just have him knock down threes. And then occasionally, to keep defenses honest, he might drive to the rim. So you might not even ask that much from him as those Houston teams needed to survive, because Embiid is at or near the top of the MVP conversation. You have an ascending player in Maxey. And then between Tobias Harris and James Harden, you have a couple of other kind of secondary scorers on your team. I mean, it seems kind of strange to say that about Harden, but maybe that's the role that he can actually thrive in the future.
And I want to say one other note piggyback off that too. I think the Heat are for sure a better team than the Sixers, but I would have loved to have seen that series with a healthy Embiid.
Yep.
Misses game 1. He misses game 2. He comes back.
He missed the first 2 games. Yeah.
First 2 games. And then Embiid, dude, even in the last game, it's in Philly, and Embiid shoots 7 of 24. 7 of 24. So we're talking about people not showing up when they need to show up. It's a closeout game at home. And again, like I said, he's playing with a bad thumb. He's playing with one eyeball, and they lose. But I don't know. There's just always some kind of a scenario, and I would have loved to have seen a healthy series.
Embiid does get a bit of a pass, I feel like, from the media at times. I mean, he definitely deserved some of that burden of proof for not showing up in that game 6. I mean, he is playing injured, as you mentioned, but even with the Kawhi shot last year with Ben Simmons disappearing in Atlanta, it's just like, okay, we're going to keep giving him a pass. He's showing up, he's doing his thing. But I mean, he's running out of years. He's running out of excuses. And I really think next year, if they run this back, which they should do that. They should get Harden back for a judgment year. And then there's really no other excuses left for next year for the Sixers.
Neil, what you said about the Harden opting in, just do that. 100%. I think it's the best option for them. He comes back. If he's the washed version that everybody's saying he is, then maybe he gets like a 3-year,
90 million something. Yeah.
So that way, you're not paying this guy like 50 million in his 37, 38 season is going to be, man, they're going to tank that franchise, and Embiid will leave.
It's going to be
100%.
It's going to be comical if they give him a max, and to see how fat he is and slow he is at age 37.
Yeah, the one thing is that I'll say is this was the knock on Chris Paul's contract, right? This is why the Rockets dumped him for Westbrook, because they're like, oh, when he turns 36, 37, they're paying him. But Chris Paul, I think physically always gets injured, right? Injury risk every season, but his basketball IQ, and Harden is not Chris Paul IQ level, but Harden understands the game, and he finishes top 5 pretty much every year in assists. You know what I mean? Like, since the D'Antoni era, he's learned how to play that game. He knows his style. So his concern is going to be his body frame and like I said, conditioning and not staying in shape, but basketball IQ and assist and being somebody that, runs the offense. He could do that well later into his career if his body and he stays in physical shape.
Big if. We got a big if there. Going back to what Neil said, I don't think Harden is washed enough to be a spot up shooter and just shoot threes as a third option.
Oh, his 3-point shooting was horrendous. Horrendous.
And he needs to use that IQ. He's a smart ass dude. He's a good ass he's a problem, right? You can, the Heat blitzed him at times, and he passed the ball immediately, quickly, effectively, right? To Tobias cutting, or to his corner 3-point shooter Maxey or whoever it was. He's very effective.
Kind of interesting
passing.
It's going to be interesting to see what Philly does, because Danny Green is pretty much done, right?
His career's over. He's age 35, 36.
And then I think they're probably going to try to move Tobias Harris if they can. But I mean, they got some moves to make. It'll be interesting to see what they look like next year.
The Sixers bench depth is comical. No offense to anybody on that team, but I mean, you talk about the Miami Heat having the deepest bench, right? And then you compare that to a team like the Sixers, and they could use a couple people. They could have used the Miami Heat 13th, 14th, and 15th people on the roster, and they would have been the first people off of the Sixers bench. That's how depleted they are.
Yeah, they got rid of them in the Harden trade. I mean, they got rid of Drummond. They got rid of Seth Curry. I mean, those are useful pieces that you need.
They could have definitely swayed the series for sure.
Furkan Korkmaz and Georges Niang, and they had to go to Paul Reed because remember they brought our boy
Paul Reed,
who literally has kind of been shipped around the last 3 seasons and been holding on to jobs because he's friends with players on the team. You know what I mean?
That's like DeAndre Jordan too, to a T.
Oh yeah. He's definitely washed. So, all right. So speaking of 32-year-olds who are not washed and who actually are extremely efficient, probably one of the most extremely efficient players left in the playoffs, who's averaging, I think, close to 55% from the field goal range, Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat. They have a big game in an hour and a half from now. So game 3, really excited for this game and more nervous than excited, but I wasn't able to watch game 2. I was in Denver for a work conference all week, so I actually got to watch the first quarter before I was
It's a good thing you
summoned.
didn't watch it.
Well, the first quarter was great. I watched it. We're up 18-8. Max Struss, as the media likes to call him, aka Max Struess, was around like 2 for 4 in that first quarter. Vincent hit a couple threes. We were looking good, 18-8. And the Celtics then went on an insane run and hit 10 from 12 from 3 in the first quarter. And, ultimately shot 20 of 40, which I didn't learn until the next morning because I did not dig into my Bleacher Report or ESPN app after I saw the box score. But yeah, they shot 20 of 40 from 3-point range, 50%, which is just an insane number, right? And I didn't see anything else. I didn't watch any highlights. I just know that we had a few no-shows, and that's been kind of consistent throughout the playoffs with the Miami Heat, Bam and Hero. Basically not providing any support to Jimmy, especially in game 2. It's terrible when 2 of your starting undrafted players, G Leaguers, Summer League players in this series, I know it's only been 2 games, small sample size, have been objectively the number 2 and 3 best players on your team behind Jimmy Butler. Gabe Vincent and Max Strus are playing better and have been more impactful in these 2 games, more so the first game, than Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero, right? The second team all defensive player, Bam, 4th runner-up in the defensive player of the year, and the 6th man of the year are getting outplayed by Gabe Vincent and Max Strus, right? So this is just not gonna bode well for the Heat. Like the Celtics will beat us in 6 if this continues, right? So I'm not optimistic about tonight. We could talk about predictions later, but yeah, I don't know. What were your thoughts on game 2? I don't know if you guys, I'm assuming you guys watched game 2, but just what was your perspective on what Boston did? They made some big adjustments because Ime obviously is a really good coach, comes from the Popovich crew, as we know. So anybody want to take it just to see like what you think Boston did well, what Miami did bad, and what needs to change in game 3 for the Miami Heat if they want to be successful and make this a series?
Well, getting Horford and Smart back was a huge start, right? We talk about Miami's depth, but when you got 2 starters out, your already limited depth is depleted even more. I mean, we're seeing Aaron Naismith getting big minutes for Boston in game 1, and that's just, they don't want that in any universe. So that's probably a huge thing. It would be nice to see these 2 teams playing at a high level at the same time. It just seems like they just missed each other. Game 1, you see Miami come out firing in the 3rd quarter. They kind of got punched in the mouth, but they responded well in the 3rd quarter. Game 2, yeah, I mean, at the top of the series, I was really interested to see what Bam was going to do. I mean, if they had an Eastern Conference MVP back in 2020, Bam probably would have got it. So you're missing out on a key contributor from your supposed number 2 right now. But the thing about Bam is he's not a naturally aggressive offensive player, right? He's the type of person that might clean up a mess off a missed shot or something. So getting him engaged offensively is challenging. I'm not really sure if there's an easy answer to that question. But one thing I will say is he's still competing on the defensive end. He's giving you minutes that way. But I think really it's going to come down to Miami getting out in transition, finding Bam on the break, getting him some easy baskets, drawing fouls, getting him to the line, because he's not the type of person that you create offense for organically. It has to come through the flow of the game off a missed shot or in transition or something like that. What do you think about that, Panos?
I agree with what you said. I think they need to get Bam going early in tonight's game, just to build some of his confidence up. I think he only had 6 points in game 2 and I think 9 rebounds. But yeah, he needs to be a big piece for the Heat if they want to move on forward to the finals in this season. It's crazy how far he's dropped from like the bubble Bam to this Bam. It's pretty insane. But I mean, give credit to the Celtics because they shot lights out that game. I mean, Marcus Smart showed up. He almost had a triple-double. I think he was 1 rebound away from a triple-double in that game. Horford stepped up. Robert Williams didn't have a great game, but those 2 that came back really stepped up for him in a big way. Marcus Smart, Jesus, man. What a great game by him, too. Bonnie, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree with what you both said as far as Bam is not that type of offensive player. And so I think that there needs to be some onus on the guards for Miami because they need to be a lot more deliberate on offense to get him the ball and post him up and dump him because everything else he's getting is just off his own motor and hustle plays. You know what I mean? Like you said, offensive rebounding, that kind of stuff. He's super engaged. You need him. He's on the court. He's a plus because he's on the defensive end. But offensively, you got to run plays for him and get his confidence going. As far as that game itself, I think the biggest jump from game 1 and to 2, again, obviously, yes, Horford and Smart playing, but the reason that changed the dynamic of those games was in the first game, the Celtics played a great first half. The third quarter, everybody remembers what happened. The Celtics just turnovers, and the turnovers were primarily coming from who?
Jason Tatum.
Jason Tatum. Why was Jason Tatum turning it over?
Because he had to handle the ball handling.
Because he sucks.
Because he was playing point. So he's playing point, which is not his role. So Marcus Smart comes in, he takes control of the ball. Dude, I think I saw a stat like his first 7 assists or whatever passes were all like assisted buckets. You know what I mean? Like talk about getting the people around because he didn't really offensively go off till the second half. Smart. He was doing everything else. He was playing defense. He was kind of taking some timely shots, but he was getting the others involved. And so what ruined game 1 was the turnovers. Marcus Smart, he reined that in, and everybody went back to their right positions and knew their roles. So when things got crazy, or Miami Heat are going to start making a run, you've got the veterans back on the court that they know how to slow the tempo back down and get a bucket and kind of kill the momentum.
So, yeah. I wouldn't consider Smart going off on offense. I think he had more of an impact on the assists, the rebounds, the defense.
He had over 20 points.
Yeah, he had 24, 12, and 9.
Yeah, but he was like 8 for 23. Like that's not like very efficient or effective. Like if you get 24 points off 23 shots or whatever it was, that's not that.
He had his hands all over that game.
Yeah, no, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like I don't think he went off from a scoring perspective. Like you give someone 24
ball
shots,
handling and distributing more so.
Yeah, rebounding. I said assists and defense, right? Like I mean, give any player of his caliber 24 shots, like. And they can get 20 points plus, right? I mean, you should if you're a good player, and we want him to shoot. We want him to shoot.
His field goal percentage might not have been pretty, but he had like 2 plays where they should have counted as like 10 points each. One of them was dropping a Strus on his butt, and the other one was
I didn't watch it.
The end one floater from behind the backboard.
I didn't. Again, you sent me. You guys sent me that highlight, and I did not
right there.
Amir, you saw the clips though, right?
No, I didn't click on it. I literally
watching those. He wants no footage.
Don't watch it. You're gonna
when I saw, did not happen in his mind.
It hasn't happened. I didn't see it. So I was like, oh, the Heat are only down 8 or 9 in the first quarter, whatever it was, or 11 actually.
I'll send you the clip again. Don't worry. All right.
Yeah, I didn't know the Heat actually lost. I didn't watch. Yeah, send it again. I did not click on it. So yeah, no, good points about just Bam. And so I was gonna say, like, who do you think is that player on the Heat? If you guys have been watching during the regular season, I think I know the answer. But
the Marcus Smart role?
No, Bam. I'm saying going back to Bam, like who is that player on the Heat that can get him involved? Because to Vonnie's point, he typically is looking to pass first, like a playmaker, right? Like when he has the ball in his hands, especially since Kyle Lowry's been out of the playoffs, he's looking to set other people up first. He's not looking to take someone off the dribble or to do like a pull-up jumper or face up. He's been in the post and he's been getting it in the post, and he's actually not also taking an advantage and being aggressive enough. He's shot 10 shots in 2 freaking games. He's averaging 5 shots per game. He had 6 in the last game and 4 in the first game. He was taking on average 14 shots per game. Like that is unacceptable as an all-star. You cannot take. He wasn't an all-star this year, but he would have been if he didn't miss 25 games. But he literally has taken 5 shots per game, and he's taken 3 shots against Jalen Green because Jalen Green's been switching to Bam and in the post. And so instead of Bam pounding the ball, backing him up because he's taller, he weighs more, he's stronger, he is taking step back or post up fadeaway shots, and he's 1 for 3 on Jaylen Brown. Like he needs to be more aggressive. He doesn't have that mindset. Sometimes he does, right? Like sometimes he plays aggressive in the post, but he hasn't had that mindset. Here's another weird thing too. I know Vonnie, you want to jump in, but 1 second. So he has not taken a shot on Al Horford or Robert Williams, right? So like,
and those are new guys from 2020. They weren't figuring prominently. Robert Williams was a bit player in 2020, and Al Horford is a recent signing. So these are new additions to kind of thwart what Bam is trying to do.
Yeah, he came from the Sixers. He came back, but so I'm telling you, this is why. They're bigger bodies. They're stronger than Bam, right? He's hesitant to post up a Jaylen Brown on a switch. He's doing like the dotted line, like free throw line, kind of like fadeaway shot versus pounding Jaylen Brown down. He can't or hasn't been able to get a shot off or back down against those big. So I think what we need to do is, one, my question earlier is who's going to set him up and help him, because Vonnie said, we need to set him up
now that he's coming back.
There you go.
There we go. Besides that,
hey, the responsibility is on your point guard, and the Miami Heat have been without theirs. So Kyle Lowry would be the guy that would be giving Bam his lobs and driving into the paint and give him a dump off pass, and he's not there. So if Lowry's not there, which if he's back game 3, that's going to be Miami's game. The onus is on the person that's playing his spot. So who's playing point guard when Lowry's not there?
Well, mostly Jimmy, right?
Gabe Vincent,
or Gabe Vincent.
Gabe Vincent,
and it's not his game.
Gabe Vincent and Jimmy don't pass to Bam. They don't. Yeah. They're friends with Bam, but they don't set him up. Jimmy pounds the ball, and like if he's gonna pass to someone, it's gonna be to someone on the 3-point line for the most part. He's not playing 2-man game with Bam.
They're plugging in just like Tatum plugged in for Marcus Smart in game 1. That's not what comes natural to them.
Who's the leading assist man for the Miami Heat after Lowry?
Probably Jimmy.
Jimmy?
It's got to be Jimmy.
It's Jimmy because it would have been Bam last year. Actually, no, I think Jimmy still had more. I think Bam was number 3. Bam was number 2 last year because we didn't have Lowry. Jimmy was like, I think around the 5 or 6 range. Bam would average around 5 assists per game last year.
Vincent is not that dude. He's not the person to facilitate for Bam under any circumstance.
He can. He's getting better, but he's there for more of like spot up, like shooting, right? Like he's not bringing even the ball down like every possession. He is at times, but he's like looking to dish and find Jimmy, finding Strus, right? Running around a million screens to get open for a 3. So he's averaging a couple assists, 3 assists per game as a starting point guard. Lowry was averaging 8 assists per game during the regular season. So, but I was going to go back to like one thing with Bam. If he's having trouble and not shooting over Williams and Horford, he needs to face up at the free throw line, and
he's got to use his athleticism to beat Horford.
100%.
At the very least,
you can't depend. He's not getting those. He's not getting set up. He's playing like a little bit lethargic because he doesn't have the Lowry. He's not playing as many minutes with Hero, who's like had a really good high pick and roll with him, getting him the alley-oops. Hero does a really good job of looking for him. Specifically, Duncan Robinson does a really good job. He's out of the lineup and pretty much unplayable because he's going to be targeted by the Celtics on the defensive end. They're doing their DHO, right? The whole time. There's dribble handoff. And if Duncan doesn't have airspace to shoot because he has so much gravity, which is like what I miss a little bit, even though he's a complete liability on defense, he would be able to slip the ball to Bam, right? And Bam would be able to get that on the move from the free throw line and attack the rim, right? So Duncan became a better passer and was able to actually put the ball on the ground a little bit this year before he fell out of the rotation completely. But
is Bam, I was gonna say, is Bam asking for the ball? Is he just like being passive and just letting everyone else get theirs?
Both. His usage in the regular season was on par with Jimmy Butler.
But in the playoffs, so is he asking?
No, he's not, because
he should be doing that.
Whatever his usage is, like Jimmy Butler's like was like 27 in the regular season, jumped up to the 30s. Bam was like at a 24 in terms of his usage rate, and now he's down to like 16 in the playoffs, right?
I think that's kind of like the side effect, right? Because you're seeing Jimmy really step up, and he's like, okay, this is my team now. I'm going to take the initiative on offense. And then the side effect is you're not seeing Bam involved. So he might need to try to figure out how to balance the tide a little bit better, because basically Jimmy Butler has already proven that what he does in the regular season is not predictive of how he's going to show up in the playoffs. He understands that once we get to the playoffs, he is going to rise up another level. He's going to be more aggressive. He's going to start being among the scoring leaders in the entire league when it comes to the playoffs. But in the regular season, he's going to coast, right? But then the side effect is now you're not seeing Bam's usage get the kind of attention that it needs. And it's starting to pop up now in a competitive series where you really need that. So Jimmy has to figure out how to get how to stay locked in while also making sure Bam is an X factor in this series.
Can I add one thing to that too? Because I want to give one knock to Bam. Amir, who's your player ceiling comp for Bam?
Who was it or who is it?
Who is it?
Is?
Who's your comp?
I might have changed.
Okay, well, I've heard you say in the past that he's got KG potential, right? So if this guy all-star level, and we know what he can bring to the table, right? The narrative of a big man not getting the ball and being limited because he can't pass himself the ball, whether it was the Kobe, the Shaq, we just heard it with Ayton and Chris Paul and Booker, right? Ayton was like, oh, I can't pass myself the ball. Those guys that are that elite and that talented, if we're saying Bam is that dude, even if he's not getting those set plays for himself, there's no way that this guy should be averaging 8 points. Because if he's mad enough and he's big enough and he's dominant enough and he's hungry enough, he can go get an offensive rebound and he could still put 16 up.
100%. What is how much of it is mental? I've played pickup ball. Yeah, it's all mental because we know he's capable.
Right? He's competing defensively. He's still engaged in the game, but he needs a light switch to turn on that I need to get mine on offense. There's no argument. There's no discussion. I'm getting my offense no matter what way it takes place.
100%. If Jimmy's not giving me the ball, he's pounding the ball too much. Okay, well, it's my turn on offense, right? So when I get the ball, because he's not they're not avoiding Bam, right? They're not not passing him the ball, but he's being passive himself. He needs to be in a position, go to the top of the key, face up. They're giving him space. Not as much space as Brook Lopez did last year in the Bucks series when they got swept, and they were daring him to shoot a freaking mid-range, and he was shooting 46% from mid-range last year. He finally stepped up, and I'm like, oh my god, this guy's gonna be Kevin Garnett. I called it from his rookie year when he was playing behind Whiteside. I'm like, I saw this guy has potential. Second year, got 10 points, 8 assists, 8 rebounds, playing 15 minutes. I'm like, this guy finally got his opportunity to start in the bubble. That's his first year he started when we got rid of Whiteside, thank God. And he showed out offensively. He was averaging only 19 a game, but I want him just to be the Bam who averages 19 a game. He averaged 18 point something last year, jumped up to 19.7, which round up to 20. Be that guy. Don't be the Draymond Green. No offense to Draymond Green. You're becoming that Draymond Green where you're really good at defense. You're good at playmaking, but you're not looking at the basket until you have to. Hey. And before that, he was more like a possible Amari Stoudemire type player, right? Even to Kevin Durant, he's still 24. He still has that ceiling. I changed the ceiling, Vonnie, from Bam Garnett to Bam Stoudemire right now. Or
good. This drop off.
Nothing, but also nothing wrong with Stoudemire, right? He was a beast with Nash, but he wasn't freaking the big ticket. He wasn't Kevin Durant, but
hey, guys.
Go ahead.
Just to cut you off for a second. Your guys' point guard before Lowry, it was Dragic, right?
Yep.
Wait, what? He played with Bam. Would he does he get Bam involved too? The way you're saying Lowry is the key for Bam in this game?
Of course not. Dragic's not a real point guard. This is the first time he's played with a real point guard.
And so Amir, what are your expectations for Lowry in this game? I mean, last time
I was going to ask
was game 4. I was
going to ask you guys,
I say you answer this one first because you are the Heat guy right here. And
not much. Not much because the guy's a little meatball. He's 36. He's played 4 games in this entire playoffs. So cardio conditioning plays a factor. Hamstring is a nagging issue. Stop nodding your head. We all know that we know that's a semi, not you, Panasonic. So we know that's
to troll you, man.
We know the hamstring's a semi excuse of why Harden's washed because he's 32, but so is Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy Butler's freaking getting better as there's some other good 32-year-olds that are still balling out there. But anyway,
no,
I'm not that optimistic about it.
I'm only nodding my head because I think they're pushing Lowry out there sooner than he's ready to, because they feel like, one, he's going to give them a morale boost. And then
I agree. Keep whispering sweet nothings to me, baby. I love it. Keep going.
You guys remember last year with the Suns and the Lakers, right? I don't remember which game it was, you guys, but remember when Chris Paul injured his shoulder?
Bullshit.
Yep. Like, here we go again. Every year.
Paul injured his shoulder, and then what did he do? He came back and played the next game, right? But it was complete decoy. But the Lakers didn't pick up on that. They were treating him like he was 100%, and they should have just literally left him wide open because he couldn't shoot. He couldn't shoot. He admitted it afterwards. He's like, I couldn't even lift my arm up past my shoulder. So they honored and played him tight, and they ended up losing that series, right? We know what happened. But I think Lowry being on the court today, we know what a hamstring injury is, dude. You can't just all of a sudden be like, I'm good. There's levels to it in terms of his injury. And if the Celtics are smart, they're going to press him. And if they press him right, he's going to be right back on the bench.
I'm just curious. Do you think he's going to have any impact in this game, Amir?
He can. And also, side note, going back, this is obviously the stupid Lakers, obviously, that fell for that, right? What's the key word you used? The Boston Celtics are smart. The Lakers are obviously stupid, right? And the Boston Celtics are a way better. I hate the Boston Celtics too, but I hate them less than I hate the Lakers, and so they're a way better franchise than the Fakers. But anyway, to Vonnie's point, yeah, I think like it might be hard to use him as a decoy. He could have an impact if he's
getting Bam engaged offensively. I think that is the perfect impact, even if 100%. He's not able to score to any level. Like
100%.
If he's the reason that Bam starts getting his offense going, that is an unmitigated win for the Heat.
So if he's unhampered enough to where he can not be a liability on defense, because he's a pretty stout, good defender, even at age 35, 36 season this year, was still a really good defender for us. He can contain Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart's not going to be explosive, beating him off the dribble. He's going to play off of him. Do you want Jason Tatum to shoot threes? No. Do you want Brown? No. Do you want even Horford? Maybe. No. Williams? Not really. Like, sure, maybe Williams more so than Horford, but like Smart is the guy you want to shoot threes, right? So Lowry can kind of play off of him a little bit, so he has some room, so he can't continuously drive past him. He's not that guy anyway, but because he has the hamstring issue, mobility might be an issue. So I think if he can contain Marcus Smart and not just get obliterated by him on the defensive end, he can make that impact, to Neil's point, on offense, where not only setting up Bam, but just setting up the team. He's their floor general. He's their point guard. He's going to make the right pass. Tyler Hero has had the ball in his hands throughout the playoffs, and he's been suspect, right? Stupid decision-making, gets nervous, gets stripped.
He played good in game one, though.
Only in the first half. I mean,
he kept him in the game in the first half, which was critical.
Yeah, he's still. But he had nothing, no field goals, and he had 3 free throws off a foul. Like, had 15 in the first 3. And that's another subject to go. But I think Lowry can make somewhat of an impact as long as he's like healthy.
Amir, you said it earlier. You know who the second leading scorer on the Heat is right now for this series?
Gabe Vincent, obviously. No?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Mr. G League guy.
That's not going to win you games.
No, but you know what that's going to win you? If your freaking all-stars like Hero and Bam start playing like they normally will. Dude, Hero is averaging 13 points a game. He averaged 21 off the bench. Bam was averaging 20 points a game. He's averaging 14. Those 15, 16 points that you're not getting from them is huge, because scrubs like Vincent and guys like Caleb Martin and Oladipo coming off the bench, that depth does matter, because you still have to rest your stars. Like stars, obviously, to Vonning's point, that Vonning has mentioned off air, that, you know, it's like superstars who minutes go up, they're the ones who are going to carry you. Depth doesn't matter as much as the talent that you have, you know, with your starting 5. But there are minutes where they need to rest, and compared to other teams, that's where we punish teams, is having Hero off the bench, a Depot off the bench, a Martin off the bench, and guys who are going to be starters or in the rotation of every other basketball team that are not even playing. Markieff Morris, Duncan Robinson, right? Like, these are guys who are not even seeing the floor. And so we need our stars to play well, because then that's where that depth comes in. That's where, like, we need Lowry to be healthy, right? Our bench doesn't look as good because Vincent is starting now, right? And like, he's playing good on the offensive end, but like, imagine if we had Lowry out there healthy. We have these minutes when our scrubs are doing bad, When Oladipo's 4 for 10, then that's where you put in Gabe Vincent, right? See if he can be effective off the bench. If Hero's not doing good, put in Martin. But like our bench is also not playing good too. That's a different story.
And the 3-point shooting hasn't improved.
Has dipped 38% regular season. We're shooting at 29-30.
Yeah, we talked about this in the preview, right? We mentioned that Miami's 3-point shooting wasn't there in the first 2 rounds, and it hasn't improved. Like I think you said this, they were the best 3-point shooting team in the league during the regular season.
38%. Yep. And even in the win, they got 30.
They're shooting like 32 right now.
In game 1, they got 30, I think. So
we talk and with this, Miami Heat does have the best depth as far as their bench goes in the league. The one thing that they need to absolutely future address is that they lack at point guard. They got too many guys that do the same thing. So to me, Gabe Vincent, Duncan Robinson, Strus, Caleb Martin, all those guys are the same dude in some capacity. And so like right now, when you're relying on a guy like Lowry as your point guard, which we know what his injury history is, when he goes down, you need to have a backup to him because you know inevitably he's going to miss games. So you look at a team like the Grizzlies, they got Tyus Jones. That guy could be starting somewhere. Like if the Heat had a Tyus Jones on the bench and Lowry's going to sit out, whatever 50% of the games in a season, you bring him in and you don't miss a beat. So they have depth, but they got to address the point guard situation on that bench.
Yeah, or Gabe becomes that guy.
More of a diverse bench is what you're saying.
Yes.
More diverse because Gabe can become that guy. I mean, like he's showing up in the playoffs, even though he's not averaging crazy numbers, but he's averaging 9 points and 3 assists, and he's an undrafted guy in his 3rd year. Like that's pretty good, right?
He's awesome, man. Those guys are all great. I'm just saying, like a true point guard, pass first, worried more about buckets.
Right. Yeah, totally. We need would you consider a Steve Blake? I'm trying to think of one like off the top.
Tyus Jones is a good call out.
That's a good current one, 100%.
That guy's going to get paid somewhere.
Hey, fun fact about Tyus Jones. He's led assist to turnover ratio like the last 4 seasons in the league. The guy's insane. He's got like a 4-to-1 ratio.
What is it? 1 assist to 0. I'll say 1 assist to 0 because he plays 10 minutes a game.
Oh, dude, the guy is so underrated. And the reason, the whole narrative that they ran during the season where, when Jaw's out, the Grizzlies are better. Part of the reason why they won a lot of those games is because Tyus Jones can play basketball. And so when he's on the starting unit, he knows how to run an offense. That guy is very, very good. So it's not that they're better without Jaw playing.
They're better defensively, and they have a good backup facilitator, ball handler.
Yep.
So they make up for it in other ways that allows them to succeed.
Correct.
All right, guys. So game 3, hour away. What are your guys' predictions for tonight? Let's start off with Panos.
Oh man, Jesus Christ, this is bad, but I honestly think the Celtics are going to win tonight. Even with Lowry back, we don't know how healthy he is, and we don't know how many minutes he's going to play and what type of impact it's going to have on the game. And we don't know if he's starting, right? So
that too. Yeah. And Tucker. Don't forget about Tucker.
Yeah. And then they're at the Garden, first game in Boston. It's going to be tough. I think they'll split in Boston, but I think Boston's going to take the first.
Got it. Neil, what do you think?
I got to go Boston in this game. I expect game 4 to be more competitive because Miami will know with more certainty what they're getting out of Lowry, but this is not a good spot for Miami. I think they are a little bit out of sorts right now. So I expect Boston to roll today. And then Miami really needs to play like their season's on the line in a game 4, which I expect to be a little bit closer.
Awesome. Budding.
The Robert Williams being out makes me nervous, but I'm still taking the Celtics.
Why?
They're going to be back at the Garden. They got Marcus Smart back. I think, I think they're going to be going to the finals. I've been saying that they were the one team that didn't shy away from the 2 seed. They weren't scared to play Brooklyn. Meanwhile, the Bucks and Sixers were doing everything to avoid that spot. They take the 2 seed. Not only do they handle the Nets, but they sweep them. They go into the next series, handle that, right? And I think storylines.
No Middleton.
Yeah. Middleton goes down, but I still, dude. I thought the Celtics could have won that series even before Middleton went down. When Middleton went down, then I was like, Celtics are going to win this. So I thought they had a shot even before the injury, and I think storylines matter. I think Tatum is blossoming into an MVP player. He should have already been in the conversation. I feel like he's another underappreciated superstar. And I don't think they're going to waste the opportunity, having gone through the Nets and the Bucks, to lose this series and not make the finals. I think this is their year.
All right, so remind me, Panos, to send Vonnig the favorite meme I like to send him, or the YouTube clip of Wrong Bet, which is a deep cut back to the 1992 Jean-Claude Van Damme movie Lionheart.
Hey, I could give you Charles Barkley guarantee.
Wrong bet. The bet's on Attila. Jean-Claude Van Damme's own manager bet in his street fighting. He bet against Van Damme because the other guy was so good, for all the reasons Vonnie said, right? They beat the Nets, they beat the Bucks. Like, this guy's gonna kill you, Lionheart. I don't think so, Vonnie. Wrong. What does Van Damme say? Wrong bet. And he beats the shit out of him.
Hey, no.
So you're taking the Heat tonight, or what?
I'm not done yet. No, keep going. Go ahead, Vonnie.
No disrespect to Miami. Listen, Miami's a very, very good team, and I think if Miami does win this series and goes to the finals, I'll still think that the Celtics are a better team than Miami. Can the Heat series? They can, but the Celtics are a better team than Miami.
Okay, so that's totally logical, right? The Suns are a better team than Dallas. They should have made it, in theory, to the final. If Dallas beat the Suns, I still think Suns are a better team technically, right? And regular season, postseason, whatever. It just didn't happen. That's fair. But also, wrong bet. And then 2, Middleton playing for the Bucks, they would have won, because the Bucks, they lost that game at home in 6. They had control. They had an opportunity to finish them. And, the Celtics got lucky in a sense, but they earned it. They got home court. They got to that game 7. They won on the road. I mean, each team won on the road multiple times. It was crazy. But I think with Middleton, unlike the Embiid injury, I think the Heat still would have beat them with a healthy Embiid. I don't think the Celtics would have beat the Bucks with a healthy Middleton. I don't think Drew Holiday wasn't that number 2. He was forced to be that number 2 anyway. If they had Middleton, I think they would have won. Tonight, Heat are going to lose 105-97. I think maybe a little bit closer, maybe 99, maybe like a 6-point loss. Even with Robert Williams out, we'll see how Lowry does. I think he might be ineffective. I think we should wait to game 4 to bring him back to see what happens, to give him an extra 2 days of rest. But going back to the Garden, rowdy fans, Celtics, are confident. So I think they're going to take that, plus having a real advantage. These are one of the stadiums in the NBA, this historic stadium. These are great, obnoxious fans, right? So that's going to play an impact. I think home court plays an impact, especially for certain teams. And so I think they're going to ride the wave of stealing one on the road, unless Bam and Hero finally show up. But I still think they're going to lose. I think game 4 is what we can steal. So going to Neil's point, I think we're going to have more urgency at that point. I think that they've already played one game at home. I think this is one of the games that we can possibly sneak, as long as we shoot well. There's so many variables for any sort of freaking NBA game. Any game can change in 5 freaking seconds, as we saw. The Heat were up 18-8 when I was watching. Boston hit 10 out of 12 threes. Sacramento Kings do that in the finals against any amazing team, they're going to win, right? The Orlando Magic does that to any team in the regular season or the playoffs. You're going to win if you're 10 for 12, 20 for 40 for the most part, unless you're the Mavericks. Anything can happen, right? That happened. We thought the Mavericks were going to win. They're freaking shooting 50% from 3. Warriors came back, right? Like, anything can happen. So, like, if the Heat shoot 40% from 3, which they haven't done once in the playoffs, I don't think, maybe one game or 2, but that's close to their average, we could win tonight. I don't know if we're going to do it, but like, if we hit our threes, we can do it. Even if we don't hit our threes, because we've won games shooting 28, 29, 30%, 32%. If Bam and Hero freaking get 20 points each, with Jimmy getting his 25, and then the other guys getting, like, chipping in, double digits here, 10 points, 8 points here, we could win.
Yeah.
Or we can get our ass beat and blown out again, because the Celtics also shoot a ton of threes. They're very effective. They're shooting better than the Heat in the playoffs.
It's almost
this year.
like you would rather have that happen. I mean, if you lose a close game, that's like more of a gut punch. If you got blown out, then you're like, okay, trash the tape. We're pissed, and we'll come out firing in game 4. But losing a close game for the Heat would be tough to come back from with such a short turnaround.
This is why Neil doesn't have a team right here. Look at this guy. doesn't follow teams. If we lose by 30 again tonight, that's more demoralizing than us losing by 1.
If you lost on a last-second shot,
I take a last second. Vonnie, what would you take if you're me? Would you want the Heat to lose again by like 30 and like blow out and just like?
I wouldn't, because that's how game 2 was. So to have it happen back-to-back games, no, I'd rather take the buzzer beater. But if if game 2 didn't finish the way that did, then I'm with Neil.
Vonnie. Cuckoo. That's why we're fucking alike, baby. Let's go. Save the F-bomb for the end. Yeah, there's no chance, man. We got blown out before. There's no way. I'd rather take I predicted we're going to lose anyway, right? We just need 1. Like, it sucks that we don't have home court because we did have the best with the Warriors. We were both 7-0. They're 8-0. We're 7-1 at home. Home court's huge, and we lost it, so we have to steal it back. 1 game, baby. All we need is 1. Just 1 game. You don't win tonight, you have to win next game. We win today, and it's the momentum switches. Like, if the Heat won 2-0 and they lost 1 game, then it's like, oh, like Boston's happy. They're getting interviewed. Like, oh yeah, no one's lost on their home court yet. It hasn't been a series yet, right? But if we win this game, we steal the momentum back. We have home court back, right? And I'm okay with going 2-2. Game 5 will be the pivotal game. At home, we should win that in theory. We're good enough. Game 6, lose on the road. Game 7, that's why we have home court advantage. That's what I'm hoping for. Heat in 7. That was my prediction. I'm sticking with it, and hopefully it happens. So we'll see. All right, guys. Thanks for joining today. Really good podcast. Really enjoyed the time. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.